Hey, what's up? What's going on, everybody? It's Friday. We made it. So I put it in the chat. We've got a pretty good topic to cover today, all things considered. We're going to be talking about setting up scanners for different kind of trading. The the trick with when it comes to setting up scanners is it has to be tailored to your needs. And I remember when I was new, everybody was talking scanners, so I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's great. Hook me up with some scanners, gimme." The problem is, one, I didn't understand any of the scanners that they were trying to give me because I was new. And when they said, "Well, what kind of scanner do you want?" I don't know. I was new. I didn't know what I wanted. So they were giving me day trade scanners when I was looking for longer term stuff, or they were giving me scanners that were like long-term buy and hold, long term, way more long term than I wanted to hold. And they were finding stuff that were way too expensive and I couldn't trade. So when it comes to setting up scanners, we're going to go through, a lot of the criteria to use to set your scanners up, but you have to decide what you want in your scanner. You can't have somebody else make those decisions for you because it has to fit your account, your needs, your taste for risk, right? All of those things. And so it's a really good idea to understand how to develop a scanner so that you can go in and change the settings and tweak them to do the things that you want it to do rather than just having somebody build you a scanner and give it to you. Because then every time you need an adjustment or you need another scanner, you got to keep going back to somebody else, having them build it for you. We have a list of scanner types that we're going to be focusing on today: day trade, swing trade, long term plays, and dividends. And of course, those can be done with stocks or options or futures. It really just comes down to the trader. So when it comes to day trades, we'll just start with that because it's the first thing on the list. We got to think about, well, what is the criteria to take the trade? Because that's going to help us define what we're looking for in the scanner, right? So, for an example, let's use SPY. We can run a scan that's looking for something like an inside day breakout or a 5 minute open range breakout. Those are both really common and they're pretty easy to set up, other than, you need to be able to define the 5 minute open range. That might require maybe using custom studies, things like that. So, depending on where you're scanning, that could be an issue. But yesterday's high or yesterday's low, most scanners should be able to handle that one. It's a really common trade setup. It's just a breakout setup. So the scan settings that we would be looking for is just something that will allow us to look at where yesterday's price high and low was, and then set the trigger to say if the stock breaks above yesterday's high or yesterday's low, then send me an alert or show up on my scanner. So that's easy enough. If we start laying out all of the different day trading strategies, then we can start to develop the criteria for, well, what is the criteria I need for each one of these strategies? Of course, you don't want to trade every strategy. There's a really good that trades at the end called the gap close play. On the back tests, it looked like a really good strategy. I mean, I did a lot of work putting that strategy together, and you never get it to be a profitable strategy because even though it works relatively well, the moves at the open are so violent and the options prices are so horrible at the open there's so much slippage and damage that sure, when you're right, you'll make some money. But man, when you're wrong, it's horrible. It's like Kevin's having some mic issues. No, I just seen your mic flashing on and off. I didn't know what that was. Yeah, 2 to 4. But I don't do FOMC Wednesdays. So if it is a Wednesday that's an FOMC, then I'll skip that Wednesday and either do it on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Perfect. Yep, yep. Have a good weekend. So I've got some strategies that over the years I've put together and they kind of suit my style and they suit my needs. If you're looking at a putting together scanners, really think about what do I want to trade and how am I going to trade it? Are you going to use just stocks and options, only futures? Because that'll really help you dial in what it is that you're trying to do. There's also a big difference between putting together a watch list and then putting together something else like a scanner. So if we have just a list of stocks that we always want to keep our eye on, that would be a watch list. If we're setting up a scanner that has specific criteria, when that criteria is met, the stock shows up in the scanner. That's a completely different thing. Now, you can mix the two together so that you have stocks that you feel are tradable, and then you can point the scanner at that watch list and say, hey, if any of these stocks on this list meet my criteria for whatever my trade is, then let me know, pop up in the scanner. So I got inside day failure. This is basically the 111 trade that I talk about all the time. Yesterday's 111. It's my favorite trade. This day trade can be done in stocks, options, futures, equities. I mean, it's just anything that tries to break out of yesterday's range and fails. That's the trade. So inside day breakout failure. I love that trade. Scan settings will be pretty simple, right? Just looking at yesterday's range, seeing if we are even near there, and if we break out of it, whether or not we should be expecting failure or continuation. But failure or continuation won't come from the candles, right? We got to do some sort of background on our own to make a determination on is this likely to fail and come back in, or is this likely to break out and continue to run? Because those answers aren't in the candles. 5 minute measured move. That one, if you're on Thinkorswim, I've got a 5 minute open range that I know I can scan with, but um, Thinkorswim's a little touchy about intraday indicators or time based indicators. So that one can kind of fail now and then. And if you're going to go to different brokers, you might have issues with a scan that does something like that. What you can still set something up. I'll show you some tricks, and it's just a time-based thing. But unfortunately, you'll have to go in and manually draw the line and then click it and set the alert. If you're running a particular watch list, that's not that bad, right? But if you don't have a watch list of stocks that you like, then you've got the whole universe of stocks out there, and we can't just spend all morning, setting lines on 500 different stocks. That would just we wouldn't get anything else done. Intraday trades, the tweezer bottom and tweezer tops. I like that trade strategy. You're going to need a scanner that can identify tradable patterns on the intraday. There's not a lot of scanners out there that does a good job at this. Thinkorswim, for an example, does have candle pattern recognition, but it sucks. I don't know if any of you guys have tried to use Thinkorswim's candle pattern recognition, but it does a horrible job. We can always hope, I guess, that in the future they'll make it better. But for over a decade, it's just been a giant turd in the punch bowl. and that hasn't changed. So this one's a little trickier when it comes to setting that one up for a scanner. The TRB, I don't know a scanner that could do this, right? Because we're asking for something very specific. TRB is a trend line breakover trade. To me, it's a visual setup. When I do hunt for this, I tend to do it manually after something has hit my high-low scanner. So if you've been around and heard me talk about the high-low scan before, it's just catching things that on the intraday are getting lit up. All right. So they tend to be near breakout points or are already breaking out, like CVX is breaking out, trying to break out right here on this low. And that's not a coincidence. This whole list is going to be things that are either just breaking out or have begun to break out already, like ConocoPhillips there. So it just on and on, right? There's another one breaking down, double bottom, getting ready to break down, the Dow breaking down. You see what I mean? Like it's a great scanner. I love this thing. So you can pair this with something like the trendline breakover, and that works out pretty good because then you know that you're finding something that's hot enough that it's hitting the scanner, and then we'd be looking to tie that in with a particular setup like the TRB or the tweezers, because that would be another really good one. So when it comes to scanners, we're always going to be handicapped by the platform that we're using and the criteria that it will or won't let us scan for. That, in the end, is the biggest handicap outside of how do we work it. Um, One platform that comes to mind that does a relatively decent job at bigger patterns, like double bottoms, double tops, channels, rising wedges, that sort of stuff, would be FinViz. Now, if you guys have seen Market, Kevin has shown that quite a bit, I think. Market is a sophisticated new platform that handles news. And I've really been looking around for a sophisticated platform like that that can do scanners and patterns and that sort of stuff. I haven't found one yet, but that'll be really cool. And it's coming sooner or later. It's gonna be here, and that's gonna be really cool when it does. So if you guys know of anything like that that's already out there, hey, tell me, tell Kevin, let one of us know so that we can go check it out. Maybe even get a deal with them so that we can get the Bullish Bears community a discount. You know, Another really good scanner that I've used in the past ties to a book about trading. It's called the Hit and Run Trading. So the website is Swing Trade Bot, and the guy his name is Michael. The guy that built this website built it based on the book Hit and Run Trading Part 1 and 2. It's a free site. You don't have to have an account, but of course, if you do have an account, you can combine the scans and make even more awesome scans. If you're just using the free one, like I am right now, because I'm not logged in, I don't have an account, we can still use the regular everyday scans that are built. You can see where it says end of day technical analysis scans right here. You can use that button, or up at the top, end of day scans, you can use that button. The scans come from the book. So if you've read the book, then you'll understand what the scans are. Even if you haven't read the book, that's not a problem because you got all scans right here and it'll give you the name of the scan. You can just click on the scan's name and then it'll give you the criteria for what the scan is. So, for an example, maybe let's find one that we wouldn't know the answer to just from the name. What's a boomer buy setup, for an example? So we want to know what that is. We click on where it said for, or the results, and here is the criteria up in the upper part of the trade. This is what it found, these two names, but this was the criteria for the trade. It's looking at the ADX. The stock has to have 2 inside days. and then it has the rules to get in. On day 4, set your buy order 10 cents higher than the high of the second day's inside bar, and then put your stop below the second inside day. All right. So your low goes to the low of the low on the inside day, and then your breakout is your trigger. The name of the book is called Hit and Run Trading, and I've shared it in the chat, so don't buy it. If you like the book and you're making money on it, then please do buy the book to support the guy who wrote it. There's Hit and Run Trading, and then there's Hit and Run Trading Part 2. This website was built based on both of those, and it'll often tell you right here, you can see where it says rules via Hit and Run Trading. If it was Hit and Run Part 2, then it would say rules via Hit and Run Trading Part 2, right? So it'll tell you which one of the books that this particular trade came from. To find the book, you should be able to search in the chat to the last time we shared. There it is. Let me see. Back in September. Yep. I will ping the link because it's right here in the chat. There you go. Click that, and it'll take you back up to where I shared Hit and Run Trading, the short-term stock trader's Bible. And then I also shared The Art and Science of Technical Analysis by Gerald Appel, or by Adam Grimes, and Technical Analysis by Gerald Appel. All three of those books and this website all at the same spot. All right. So this is really good because it's going to give you a lot of strategies, and the book explains why the strategy was developed. It's got the history behind it, all that good stuff. I learned them. I liked them. I can't say that I traded most of them because I tend to just do my own kind of strategies. But like with most of the strategies that I've learned over the years, I've often used these strategies for analysis, to where I'll look at something and say, oh, hey, yeah, that looks like an inside pocket, or one of the other ones, the Gilligan's Island reversal. So it's a good read. And this website, since it's free, right? You can't beat free, is pretty darn awesome because you can put the two pieces together. And it does cover day trade, swing trade. You can do any kind of scanning that you want, especially if you get an account and then you start combining all of the pieces together. The gap close play. This is another one I don't think I could develop a scanner for, since we're looking for a particular candle to form a liquidity gap, and then we run the gap close back again, or we trade it after it came back and closed the gap. Either way. So I don't think this one would be a good one for a scanner. But those were all day trading ones, and day trading ones are going to be really tricky to do. These are the ones that I trade. These are my day trade setups. But there are common day trade setups that are not my setups, right? So with that in mind, let's kind of focus on some of those. High volume gappers. This is what I post in the watch list every day, right? We've got the watch list. The link to my website is shared every morning when I go live and I share the Zoom link and all of that. My website is shared there, but there's also that right there. Either way. So high volume gappers, this watch list that I share every day comes with this, right? And if you look at the top, some of the settings that we're using is the gap and then the short float, days to cover, and volume today versus the average volume. So these are the criteria that we're using in this one, and it's really set for cheaper stocks. But I mean, expensive stuff does show up. You got Lulu in there, and it's $200. You know what I mean? But we're looking for low float gappers that have a chance to really get up and move. I don't trade this, right? Like I never trade this, but this is Trade Ideas. And Trade Ideas is a very sophisticated scanning platform, very sophisticated. It's also not cheap. Um, I have access to it from the Bullish Bears. Yeah, Trade Ideas. I don't use the scanner after I'm done with this scan. I just turn it off because I don't use it. But I do use it for this scan every day because they've been sharing this scan for years. And the person who used to scan it and share it isn't here. Somebody had to take his spot. So I took his spot. I turn it on. I use his scanner settings, take the picture, analyze the stocks to see what I like on the list. And then I put the list together and I stick it into that file every day or into that channel. So these are low float stocks that are gapped up and have the right kind of volume imbalance. And then I look at the chart, and if I like the chart and it's on this list, then it gets added to the channel. That's a really popular strategy, right? High volume gappers, low float. You can do something similar even if you don't have trade ideas, right? The idea would be to adjust the float settings and then find a sweet spot in average volume versus today's volume. But average volume can get tricky, right? Because you're trying to look at a stock's end of day average volume versus a stock's pre-market today volume. And some platforms can really choke on that. I know Thinkorswim has a hard time when you start adding in multiple time frames. Like, hey, I want to look at the daily average volume, but I also want to look at what today's volume is. Thinkorswim has issues with that. It'll do it, but expect errors and sloppy seconds. Another one is a volatility squeeze scan. Both of these that I just mentioned, volume and um, volatility, can be scanned on TradingView relatively well. The thing about using the scanner on TradingView is having a particular watch list that you might want to point towards. They've gotten it done now, but a couple of years back, that was my biggest frustration is I couldn't get it pointed towards a set of stocks that I wanted to scan in. So nowadays we can do that. If you've already got a watch list, then you can use that list and tell it here, just use this. They've got some really good settings in here for pre-market. That's the one that I run in the live streams in the morning. It's basically asking how many stocks are up in the NASDAQ 100 or how many are down in the NASDAQ 100 by a particular percentage point. That's not a trade signal. That's just a tool to define how bullish or bearish we are in the pre-market. So that's my number one scanner right there, is these four criteria. But we can really expand on that, especially when it gets into things like dividend trades and long-term trades. Because again, even with those, usually when somebody says, "Hey, do you got a scanner for long-term trades?" I say, "Sure, what's your strategy?" "Oh, no, I don't actually have a strategy. I want a strategy for long-term trades, and then I want to turn that strategy that you give me into a scanner so that I can then scan for stocks that meet that strategy." So for the dividend, there's a pretty common collection of dividend scanners. Um, I'm going to post them into the chat because there's different ones. I shouldn't have gone to dividends yet. I should have stayed on day trades just a little longer, but I've already started, so I'm going to just get it posted. We've got, let's see, dividend aristocrats, high beta. We'll get them posted here. This is going to be for TradingView. The real difference between TradingView and Thinkorswim is whether or not you're able to use custom indicators as a part of the scan. So as long as you can bring in a custom indicator to complement the scan, then both are fine. Otherwise, if you get hung up on one versus the other, then you have to go to the one that can do it. My chart section. I'm not showing a chart at this point, so I don't know what you're I guess when the time comes that I share a chart, I will let you know that it's for one or the other. Because right now we're just pointing out the dividend strategies, no chart. When it comes to dividend strategies, these are the 4 types of dividend style strategies that are out there. There's very specific needs. Yes, but Austin, you just went to like 9 different topics all at once. So you lost me there. I am sharing my charts in the Thinkorswim Discord. And yes, I have been adding my TradingView charts to the Thinkorswim Discord as well. Yes, I am doing that. I'm still doing that. I'm just putting them together a little bit at a time because I've also got another project that I'm working on. We've got a lot of new traders out there, and I'm trying to put together a whole series of stuff for newbies. So yes, I'm sharing my TradingView charts in the Thinkorswim Discord. I've put some in there, but I haven't put them all in there. Oh, I love the interruptions, but with no preamble, with no idea what you were talking about whatsoever. You just start asking about charts from the middle of nowhere. So I had no idea what you were talking about. Wasn't meant to, but we certainly can. I mean, if I build a scanner for TradingView, why not add it, right? Why not? Except I probably won't save these because I don't have any intention of using them. So I'm going to build it. We're going to talk about it, and then you can build it, and then you'll have it. These are the dividend strategies. Aristocrats is a very specific kind of dividend. Otherwise, we would target a high beta, a low volatility, a momentum dividend. These are 4 different kinds of strategies. They don't need a chart, they just need a scan. Once the scan was developed, yes, it could be shared into the Thinkorswim Discord. I have no intentions of building out 50 different scanners on TradingView and sharing them, but somebody could. We can use custom filters or Pine scripts to adjust the logic on those since they are on TradingView. Some criteria that goes with these would make it more specific, right? Like the low volatility, high dividend, we need to be able to scan for volatility. We would need to know the the percentage of the yield. So here's the strat. I hadn't planned on doing a live stream where I sat and built all of these out. It's more the idea of teaching people what goes into the scan and allowing them to build the scan for themselves. Because, I would happily share these. Very easy. I would happily share these. Two criteria. One, you point it at the NASDAQ 100, and two, you make it pre market greater than a half or less than a half for positive or negative. That's it. That's the scanner. So someone could go in and, build that on their own, or I can figure out how to share this thing and then share it. Right. So, yep, those can certainly be added to the Thinkorswim once I figure out where the share button is. Share screen. That's the only scanner that I use on TradingView, is that right there. The one on Thinkorswim doesn't do this, which is why I was doing the scan on TradingView. The watch list that I have on Thinkorswim is just a list of stocks, not a scanner at all, just a watch list. Trying to find all my TradingView posts. I really need to just build a Discord for TradingView so that it doesn't muddy up the water on my Thinkorswim Discord. TradingView, got it. All right, that one's been shared into the Discord. And that one's been shared into the Discord. Like I started today's stream, you do not want to go through everything with just somebody else setting up your screeners. You're going to want to really figure out how a screener is developed so that if you wanted to make changes to it along the way and adapt it and modify it to suit your needs and become something more specific, that you're able to do that because you have all the background on how do I make this scanner? How do I adjust this scanner? How can I do something different with this scanner? Without that, you're stuck always going back to somebody else saying, "Can you make my scanner with less high cost names, with more volume, with less volatility, with this, with that, with this and that?" Okay, the S&P negative is put in there. and the positive S&P is in there. So all four of the TradingView scanners that I use in the morning are in there. For anybody that wants to build them yourself on a different platform, say you're on IBKR or you're using FinViz or something, you just want the criteria, point to the hundreds. So the NASDAQ 100, the S&P 100. I do that for a reason. I don't want the 500. I want the 100. So NASDAQ 100 or S&P 100, and then pre-market change greater than a half or less than a half. I run my scan at 7:30 in the morning. If you're going to run your scan closer to 8:30 or 9, maybe 9:15, use a higher number. 1.0, 1.5, 2, especially if you get a lot of names, right? So the reason for me using the half is over the years at 7:30 in the morning, I've learned that if I set it too high, I don't get anything, right? Or I'm getting a picture that doesn't fit the mold, or it doesn't really give me that clarity of what's going on out there. Because remember, I'm not looking to trade any of these. I just want to know the total number of stocks that are up versus the total number of stocks that are down. And I have no interest in trading the names that actually show up in this list. So it's just a macro concept. How many names are bullish? How many names are bearish in the pre-market? At least 0.5%. If you're going to do that closer to the open, push the number up higher or make it more negative, right? 0.5% isn't going to be negative enough if you're looking to the downside. In the Discord, I just posted the aristocrat, high beta dividend, low volatility high dividend, and momentum dividend scans. So the filters are there. You can actually tell TradingView that you only want the aristocrat, which is really cool. Thinkorswim doesn't have that. And then your row greater than 10, debt to equity less than 1. And of course, you can combine it with things like RSI if you're into that sort of stuff. I do not have these built. No, all good. I am horrible at typing to answer people while I'm talking. So I all good. You should see some of the stuff I put out there when I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm like the king of getting that one all muddied up. All good. I continue to say I can't chew bubble gum and walk or type and talk. I will screw it all up. So this dividend list covers just about every style of dividend that I know of for strategy wise. But there are risks for dividend trades, right? Every kind of trade strategy has a particular risk to it. One book that I found that was really good is this one. Let me get the name. The guy is so this is the little book of common sense investing, and he talks about these dividend plays. And then some common mistakes to avoid when it comes to the dividend. Yield traps, which is only looking at the yields that are offered and not looking at, say, the stock charts or news. Ignoring market cycles and not diversifying. My dog is freaking out. Hold on, guys. Now that looks pretty. So that covers dividends, really. That's pretty, isn't it? I wish I had artistic detail. Me and Marziti had a talk a while back about our work with dividends. And I think his results were very similar to mine in the fact that we didn't have really great success if we only focused on dividends. Now, I don't want to put words in his mouth, so you guys can ask him, if it worked out better than I remember for him. But as far as I remember, if we only focused on dividends, it didn't work at all. My best outcomes with dividends has been focusing on stocks that are already in my list that I like. And if they have dividends, then great. Like, hey, I'll take it. But focusing on dividend criteria and going after that specifically, I've had absolutely no luck. All the videos that I found out there highlight this idea that sure, if you've got a half a million or a million and a half and you buy a bunch of stock, then you can live on the dividend payout. Sounds good enough, I suppose. But if you're just going to hunt around and try to play dividend strategies, I think income trades would be a much better outcome and have a more consistent payout at the end of it all, really. But understanding what these are doing, especially like what the aristocrats are and the yield and just having the background on the dividend really does help so that when you're looking at your regular watch list of stocks and you can see that they have a dividend or not, cool, right? Like if you're picking between, say, I don't know, Pepsi or Coke, and you know that one's got a better dividend or the other, then you can lean more in that direction, right? Absolutely. The cost prohibitiveness of it is really the gut wrench. When I see the videos and they're like, "Oh yeah, Google at $3,000 a share," because back in the day Google was really expensive. Yeah, grab 8 or 10,000 of these shares and it's got a really great payout, two thumbs up. Like whatever. That's just not viable for a lot of people. And there's cheap stocks that have a really high dividend payout, and those are high risk stocks. You'll lose more from the stock falling than you'll make from the dividend payout. And that's a trap, right? That's 100% a dividend trap. And that's what me and Marziti were talking about. Oh, it was a couple months back, but there's these guys that sit around on YouTube and that's all they do, right? They pump and dump these low float trash companies with a high yield, a high dividend. And some companies, they pay dividend every month. They don't do it every quarter. So, I mean, you can get, some good payout, but a lot of those are on trash companies that's going to go down and they're going to do stock splits and dilute the shares. And it's an inevitable stock decline just continuously. And you're the one holding it, right? So I'm not a huge fan of trying to trade dividend strategies. But I do believe that understanding the dividend and the process of the dividend helps so that you can better evaluate the stocks that are in your list. The 5-year minimum has a name too, doesn't it? Because I know the aristocrats are, they're 25 years, and there's a 50-year name, what I can't remember the name of at the moment, but um, isn't there a name for the 5 years too? Like the bronze, or I don't think it's silvers, but maybe bronze, copper. Yeah, but they got these little nicknames for all of them, and you gotta 5 years is a good start. So I did grab the dividend stuff because I wanted to make sure that the settings were there, and we got those. For volatility, I gotta say nothing out there matches the way that I do volatility, the premium trading, and that's because I built it, and I don't like the way the industry does these. Right, so for volatility, I need a new one. Create new scan. Volatility is a funny thing. Bollinger Bands are considered a volatility indicator. It's funny, but it's true. So let's put together some filters here. What watch list do we want? I believe I have my weekly options list right there. This will make sure that they at least have weekly options and that their options are priced with a penny price. Um, I think Marziti tweaked it even more, and he added something that was like 24-hour traded, and that'll shorten the list from 300 to 200, which I see this says 200. That might be his. Because if it had weeklies in penny, it would be in the 300s. But if we choose the 24-hour trading, it knocks it down into the 200s. So this is a pretty tight scan right there. And by tight, I mean it is narrowly focused. Some people like as many names as they can get. And it's not about what's right or wrong, it's just what style suits you. I don't want a lot of names. I just want the highest quality names, right? So I tweak my settings to not get the most names, but try to quote get the best names. 264 is okay, but I could miss something, right? Because I've got my settings maybe a little too tight. I could miss a name that would have been a great trade just because my settings were a little too tight. And I bring that up because when you do tweak your settings the way that I do to eliminate names, you have to be careful that you don't eliminate too many names. Then you miss the good stuff, right? So it's kind of a catch 22. If there's too many names, there's too much stuff. You got to weed through it and you can't get a trade because you're digging through an endless list. But if the list is too narrow, then you're missing stuff happening all around you. And the one thing that you're focused on isn't getting a trigger that day. And then you missed all the good stuff. I don't have a perfect answer to this either. Just that the pool of your stocks, if you're comfortable with it, can get you where you want to be. I'm comfortable with this list. I let the news guide me if I'm missing something. Like today, pot stocks were really big. Actually, last night, right? Because the president headlines on pot stock legislation got them moving and they were in the scanner this morning. They're not on my list here, but I already know about them. So that's how I kind of cover the issue of a really tight scan list. Now we want to find some volatility. And if we look on here, it doesn't just have volatility. That would be too easy. So we can try looking at some technicals. Just scroll down to the V's, no volatility. But we know that Bollinger Bands our volatility indicators. So we can do that. We can leave it at its settings. Right? We don't need to adjust the 20-day look back or the fact that we're using it on a daily. And what it's asking here is which side of the band do we want to use in our filter? If we're doing long trades, then I kind of like to buy things on the dip. So, to look at the lower edge for a long trade, and I would be looking at the upper edge for a short trade. I know that might sound a little bit backwards, right? But I'm not interested in trying to find something that's breaking out to the upside and then going long with it. And I'm not interested in finding something breaking out on the downside and going short with it. It doesn't suit my style. Either way you want to trade it doesn't matter, other than how you go to set the scanner up for yourself, right? If this is going to be my bull scanner, mine, then I would set that to the lower because I'd be looking for a reversal off the lower Bollinger. But remember, we're only putting Bollingers on because we're looking for volatility. Was your ears tingling? Because we were talking about you. I got to send you some links to my shop vac system. I just use a regular shop vac, but it has a little bit of advanced filters in it, and then it has an attachment that goes to the front of it, and it saved me so much money, and it does such a good job. I'll send you some links. We were talking about dividends earlier, and about the dividend trap of finding stocks with high dividends, and then they just bleed stock price lower and lower and lower and lower, right? I did put some dividend scanner settings in the Discord. So when it comes to using the Bollinger Bands, we probably want to swap this to the Bollinger Band percent if they have it, because the way we're going to use Bollinger Bands to identify volatility would be if the bands are constricting or expanding, and that'll help us identify if volatility is shrinking or expanding. And if they are already really wide, then we'll know we're in a high volatility environment and it's getting bigger, or we're in a high volatility environment and it's getting smaller. And if they're narrow, if their Bollinger Bands are close together, then we're in a low volatility environment that might be expanding or vice versa. Since we don't have a volatility indicator, using Bollinger Band percent would be a really good way to go. But I'm looking and we don't have Bollinger Band percent. We got true range percent, which we could use that, I suppose, to do the same thing. It's another form of volatility. Uh, so, we're just trying to figure out what we can use for volatility since we don't have volatility. Not on TradingView, at least not in the technicals. I, yeah. Well, I mean, preferably Thinkorswim because it has options data, and then you've got access to IV, right? Because that would be the best way to go. But if the request is, well, get it done, but don't use Thinkorswim, then yeah, TrendSpider, FinViz, TradingView. I mean, there's a number of really good places out there where we could go. FinViz, yeah, it gets it done. I mean, it is described as a volatility indicator, right? Like if you look up what's a Bollinger Band or what's a Bollinger Band indicator, it tells you that it's a volatility indicator. Here's studies. Here's Thinkorswim, and if I go to studies, all studies, and I go to, let's say, volatility studies right here, Bollinger Bands and Bollinger Band width and Bollinger percent B are all volatility indicators. So is Chaikin and CSI and, you know, TTM squeeze, variable MA, all of these are volatility studies. So I would say we could use average daily range percent, and that will help us identify, which way we're going. So for a volatility scan, we can use this one a number of ways. We can do um, day trade scans, which is okay, but we can do swing trade scans with it too. The idea with swing trade scans based on volatility is that a lot of premium traders will sell volatility. The way that I run premium trades, the volatility doesn't matter, right? Which is why I did mine first, and then I talked about the industry's standard second, because I do things different than the regular market does when it comes to selling premium. I'm going to take a picture of this volatility scan, squeeze scan. This is the industry's standard. So I'm going to just take a picture of it and put it in the chat. We can see that they used Bollinger Band width, Keltner channel width, ATR percent, volume, and then change um, for the volatility scan, squeeze scan. If you're on Thinkorswim, you could just use the TTM squeeze. Yeah, let's check. Um, I mean, no squeeze. So the way I started this out today, guys, when it comes to putting together a scanner, if you have a strategy, then you can set your scanner up. If you don't have a strategy, you can't set your scanner up because then what are you setting it up for? Right. So when someone says, okay, I want a swing trade scanner. Okay, what kind of swings trades are we going to do? We can do volatility, which is the scanner that I just put into the list. We can do stock breakouts. We can do the hit and run trading book that I shared in the chat. Of course, takes us to the website, the swing trade bot. Double bottoms, double tops, TRBs, wedge breakouts. If you have a strategy, then we can build a scan around it. Without it, we're just back to I need a list of stocks and I need a trade strategy. Well, that's what we used to do when I live streamed every day. That's exactly what we used to do in the afternoon. It is higher than the previous day's close, and it's closing higher than the open. It it'll be solid if it closes like this solid one over here. Let's zoom into that solid candle over here. That's a solid green candle. It's green because the close today is higher than the close yesterday, but it's solid because the close is less than the open, but the close is still higher than yesterday's close. The good thing is you can change that setting to do it however you like. That's the good thing. But if they're all solid or they're all hollow, then you can't tell when that happens. And that's why I set it this way so that I can see. Otherwise, if it's a green candle, what would we be thinking? That the close is here? And that's just not true. The close wasn't there. The close was on the other side. I'm not, but I say green because, well, because everybody uses a green chart. I know my candles are blue. So, so how to set up a scanner is you either have a watch list or you have an empty scanner that will fill up when conditions are met, and or you point your scanner at your watch list, right? And to me, that's the way I like to do it. Otherwise, the scanner will bring me names that I'm not interested in trading. So I have a watch list, and then I develop a scanner that looks at my watch list. So then we've got breakouts, reversals, volatility, dividend. Those are the ones that are really common. And then you can filter that for day trade, swing trade, whatever. Um, if you don't have the strategy, then the scanner really can't be developed, right? And so let's do it. Let's put it all together, starting with how do I figure out what stocks do I want to trade? I like options, so I need a scanner that can find options data. At the moment, TradingView still has limitations when it comes to options data. They are getting data from Tasty, but it's not all here yet, right? So we're going to go to Thinkorswim and look at a scanner that can find options data. And I start with stocks that have weekly options. It has weeklies because it earned the right to have weeklies. If it's not liquid, it won't have weeklies. But to make it even more, quote, tight, the 24-hour trading that Marziti found is perfect. I used to use pennies. If it had penny price options, that's what I would use. But this is better than penny priced options. And if you wanted to, you could replace weeklies with penny priced options. That's a good way to go. Penny priced is down in, where is it at? Maybe it's at the very top. Is it P? I thought it was moved. There it is, penny increment options. So you could do that instead of the weeklies. And just that alone, these two will bring you a basket of stocks of around 260. And to me, that's perfect. But like I mentioned earlier, if you're if you're different than me and you want a broader list, then remove the 24-hour trading and you'll get more names. All right. I want less names, not more names. They are all around better. They are just, but some people want more names rather than more quality, right? So that's why I was pointing out I like quality over quantity. But if you want quantity, not quality, knock off the 24-hour trading and keep either the penny increment or the weeklies, right? Keep one of those two. But I've gotten to the point though that I've found that people want more risk than I do. You know, they do. They just want more than I want. So risk, names, stocks. If you want more, to tweak that. So now we've got all these stocks. Save that. That's your watch list. That's your basket of stocks. And then from that basket, what I like to do is get rid of all the ETFs. Now, that's just me, but I don't necessarily want to get rid of them. I just want them in their own basket. So you can filter this list after you make it and only get the ETFs. And then you can filter it the other way and get rid of all the ETFs. So now you have two watch lists. One is a watch list of ETFs with penny increment options that trade 24 hours a day. And the other one is a watch list with no ETFs, penny increment options, and it trades 24 hours a day. I'm going to ETFs are mean reverting products. They come back to the middle. So, you get something like Apple, it could break out and it can run for the next 9 months. It can have earnings after earnings after earnings that are good, and it just keeps going and going and going. ETFs mean revert, and they are a basket of stocks on their own. So are not supposed to be big runners. They're great for premium trading. They're great for uh, doing trades where you have a small target like butterflies, iron condors, things like that. They work really good for ETFs. Equities are your goes, your movers, the ones that you want to use for targets and seeing it actually giddy up. Equities also often have higher priced options than the ETFs do. Not to say that ETFs can't get expensive, but you got more variety in the options prices when it comes to equities. And you'll get people will pile into one name like crazy. So you get these monster runs in names of a stock. ETFs usually don't get that sort of shenanigans in there. We were able to eliminate 58 names, which would be an awesome watch list of 58 names for ETFs, right? You could just like make a little watch list for just ETFs. So this is our basket of stocks. Penny priced options stocks. There's got to be a better way to say that, but I don't know what it would be at the moment. Now that we have that basket, we can run all of our scanners pointed at that basket. So here's the cool part. Just hit reset, get rid of everything that we've already done. And now when it says, what do you want to scan in? We want our own basket, right? The one that we just made. Now we can intersect that with something else. We can sort by sector, industry, um, moves, earnings, dividends, whatever we want to sort by, we can do that because we've got the intersect, or we can start excluding things. So this would be for, say, inside day breakouts, staying within the expected move range, 5 minute open range breakout, that sort of stuff. Because it's always going to come back to your penny priced options stocks. Keep in mind that just because it's in that list does not mean it's liquid. We're just using that list hoping that it's going to be more liquid than the other junk that's out there. So now we can start to hone in on, say, a particular indicator like yesterday's high, yesterday's low. That is an indicator. Thinkorswim has it under daily. So we want to add a filter. We're just going to not intersect with anything. We want to add a stock, uh, a study. So come down to custom. We'll just edit what's already there. Choose a study. It lets us type what we're looking for. Just type in the word daily and we'll get daily close, but also daily high low. This is yesterday's daily high low. That's why it's displaced by a -1. So now we can say that we want to do price is greater than or price is less than this daily high low. So let's circle back and do this another way. Price close is crossing above, or what do we want? Do we want stock actually breaking out or that it already is out there? Okay, so it's already broke out. Now we get to choose, are we making a bullish one or a bearish one? And I want to choose the bullish. So it's already broke out of the daily high. Close is greater than the daily high's high. That means yesterday's high. Now, if I hit scan, any name in our penny priced list that is higher than yesterday's high should show up in this scan. There it goes. 39 stocks. It just took them a little bit. So the topic request for today came from someone who was looking for scans, and they got a specific one they want to work on, which will be awesome because then we can target exactly what the request is for. This is just going through the process of putting together a scan, and I chose one inside day breakout to the upside. Well, these have broke out of yesterday's high. That's all we know at this point. We didn't add any additional settings to look for reasons it might reverse or reasons it would continue. This is just, hey, is any stock in our list higher than yesterday's high? That's all we've got at the moment. Right. Or reversal. Because I'm a big fan of failing to break yesterday's range and coming back in again. I'm because that's what we do, right? If this was the ETF list, we would definitely be wanting to look for the ones that are coming back in. Maybe because it's the equity list, we should look for the continuation. But yeah, I tend to play mean reversion because I tend to play ETFs like SPY, the ES, the Qs. But as equity traders, we should probably look for the continuation. Look at Ford yesterday and Ford again today, breakout of the previous day's high, and it just continued to run. Breakout of the previous day's high again today, and it gave some back, but it still continued to run. Even Tuesday's high was broken on Wednesday, and it continued to run. So those are 3 days in a row inside day breakouts that it took off and it continued to run. I like it. The problem, though, if we're only quote looking for things for a swing trade, is that's too vague. That's too generic. What kind of swing trade do we want? High momentum, fake break, fast failure, weakness that's reversing back, what they call fallen angels. There's so many strategies out there that if we just say, I want a swing trade scanner, that's like saying, I want something with a motor in it. I can get you a moped or a Porsche, but just because it has a motor, that's not enough information. How about a motor and tires? Yeah, no, I mean, I could get you one of these new little electric bicycles. You're not going to be happy if you were expecting the Porsche. So, if we want to quote swing trade scanner, we need to have a swing trade strategy. Any strategy that would work, but we need to pick one. I said that to somebody once and they said they want the strategy that wins. I thought that was awesome. I wish I knew what that one was. So one thing when it comes to I don't have a strategy is to look back in the past at price action that you feel envious or you feel like you missed and you think, man, I would love to have traded that. Doesn't really matter what it is, but some that you might want to avoid are really big bars like that because they're earnings related. But if you look in the past and you find some price action that you really like, that's a really good starting point for a strategy, even if you don't know the name of the strategy yet. Then there's the idea that as traders, we got to develop um, the ability to read price. So price patterns are really good. We can focus on, head and shoulders, cup and handles, morning star reversals to keep it as simple as possible since the idea of, well, I don't have a strategy, so I guess I don't know what I don't know. Breakouts into new highs is the most generic, user friendly. I just started trading yesterday kind of strategy, and you can just focus on it's breaking out into all time highs. All-time high strategies are just that. They are stocks breaking out into new highs. And if we don't like the answers that we get in that scan, then we can say new highs this year, new highs in the last 5 years, right? Because then we can find names, say like I think it's Costco. That no, it's definitely not Costco. There's a one of these retailers that just hit a high that it hasn't seen in 25 years or 20 years. Maybe it's Cisco Systems. Yeah, there it is. So this stock, I can't even go back far enough, I bet. This stock has reached a high that it hasn't seen in forever. There it is, right? So it's not, quote, new highs. It's been there before, but it's been so long since it's been there, it might as well be new highs, right? And that way, if all-time highs doesn't give you enough names, then you can look at things that are hitting new highs this year, new highs this, even new highs this week, if you want to tighten it up and make it a little tighter than that. So that generic one right there, just stocks making new highs, is a good start. It's been a while, huh? And it went all the way down to $10. This is a log chart, so the skew of it all really can't be appreciated from this view. But it went from $82 to $10, and then it slowly worked its way back up. $8. I misspoke. From 82 to 8. What a beatdown. Yeah, the 10th, the 12th, 13th. So I get it. If you don't have a strategy, then read a couple books. Trading is always more learning, more learning, more learning, more learning. I get it. It sucks. Um, Head and shoulders, rising wedges, breakouts, breakouts. Since we trade breakouts as stock traders, futures traders, options traders, trade things that you already recognize. Breakout of yesterday's high, a breakout into all-time highs. How do we scan for something that's breaking out into all-time highs? It's just the scan settings, right? So learning how to put a scan together, which is what the stream was today, was about learning about these different settings and criteria, because it has to come back to what are your needs. And then if your needs are, I don't know, just something that's going to go in one direction long enough for me to make money on it. I don't know, I don't know how long you're going to be in it, 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 hours, 6 months. Breakouts. So breakouts, we already have the basket of stocks, but if we don't want to use that, we can go to TradingView or anything else out there as long as it has stock prices, and we can just choose breakout into all-time high. That is all the criteria you need. You don't have to add RSIs or MACDs or stochastics or anything like that because it's all bumpkiss anyways. If it's breaking out into all-time highs, that is your list of stocks. You can then go in and look at the news associated with them to see why are they breaking out, and or just buy them. Little fatalistic that if it is not going to work, then no matter how much energy you put into it, it isn't going to work. And if it is going to work, then no matter how much energy you put into it, it was going to work. So it breaks out, buy it. Have your stops, keep your money management in place. And if it fails, then get out of it as quickly as possible and move on to the next one. Diversify so you have multiple industries, sectors, preferably different directions, long, short. I was looking here because I'm pretty sure that Thinkorswim has price filters, but I'm looking in the wrong spot. I need to add a stock filter. Now, I was looking in the drop down because I don't chew bubblegum and walk very well. So stock change percent. No, that'll just give us criteria on how far. Let's try study, price studies, right there, price performance, near highs or near lows, or should be another one that is actual new highs, new lows. There's your candlestick patterns, by the way. But little disclaimer, Thinkorswim sucks so bad at reading candle patterns that if you're going to do patterns, try TradingView or TrendSpider or FinViz, because Thinkorswim's candle reading abilities suck. That's as nice as I can make it too, because it's so horrible. I guess we're going to use near highs or near lows. So the current price is within, I would tighten that up to, a very small number of the 52-week high. And then, of course, you can make the basket whatever you want, stocks that are cheap, stocks that are expensive, from a particular sector or industry. For me, it's always going to be liquidity. So I would use the same basket that we made before. That way, instead of getting 66 names, maybe we get a few less. I could have swore Thinkorswim had something that was all-time highs. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought for sure they had an all-time high. New yearly highs. They've got it built in their public. So stocks making new yearly highs and stocks making new nearly lows, nearly yearly. You don't even have to make a scan for it. You can just come in, add your watch list, and then in the drop down, go to public, go to the ends, and you want new, wherever it went, new yearly highs or new yearly lows. Now, if you do it this way, you're going to get everything. If you want to tie it to your basket of stocks, then use your basket and tie it to that new high, new low. That way, only stocks that are in your basket are going to make those make the list. And I ran the scan and it didn't find anything. So nothing on our list was hitting new highs. Oh, let's get rid of that extra that I added on there. We don't need that extra now. There we go. 18 names, including Johnson and Johnson, Love's, Rivian. Rivian had a big investor day event. I don't think they called it that, but they had a big event. Um, that was a beautiful trade. Started 2 days ago. They had a fake break to the downside. It was a bear trap. Look at that bear trap. Dropped down into 16, started to come back up. And then today, big gap up and run. Made it back to the top plus some, and now it's back down again. The event may not have been that good after all, but that was the hype for Rivian. This really reminds me of a liquidity gap inside of this inverse head and shoulders, by the way. Um, and measured moves are all well and good, but just keep in mind that we talk trash on the head and shoulders because it's the funnest one to talk trash on. Um, this breakout ran to close the liquidity gap created by the earnings. It got there, it closed it, and it stalled and started to fall. Now that doesn't mean it's a short from here. It We don't know that, but it could be. One thing you can do is measure the shoulder to the head or the neck to the head, and then you can project that measurement to the upside. And of course, you can aim for 50% of that move. And we can also measure just that and run it this way using our quadrants and our fib lines. But since we're inside of this earnings candle and we know that that candle is boss, I would do that like that. Now, one thing that I I can recommend when it comes to swing trading is find your niche spot, right? Some swing traders really love momentum stocks. And to trade momentum, you're looking for things, all indications that point to a stock that's already moving. Okay. I say that and I know how obvious that sounds, but I get questions from somebody like, we'll just use Ford. Hey, is this a breakout stock? We don't know. It hasn't broke out yet, right? Like it's still inside of this really big bar. Sure, it's had a 3-day run, but it's still inside the range. So is it a momentum play? To me, it's not because it's still inside a range and I can see where the range is going to end. If we get out and we've still got a lot of other signals that say it's momentum, then we have momentum. So you can't find momentum if you don't already have momentum, right? I know it sounds funny, but you have to have it to find it. You can't find something that might possibly get momentum because that's different. We have scans for that. Really low ADR, really low volatility generally leads to high ATR and high volatility. So, we can do that. But if you're trading momentum, find something that already has momentum. Say stocks breaking out into new highs. That always works really well because it is. So this is Momo. I tend to go to this broker in the morning because it's got easy to read headlines and they make these little memes that are easy to just at a glance information. And in the mornings when I go here, I'm looking for headlines that point me in the direction of some of the big things like semiconductors. If they're all going up, there'll be a headline, they'll be crying about it. If they're all going down, there'll be a headline, they're crying about it. And we know that, chips are a really big deal. But if it's pot stocks, EV stocks, space stocks, whatever it is, I'm looking at the headlines so that I'm not looking at just one name, but a particular sector or industry or group that might be resented by one name like Oracle, right? Oracle whacked us down yesterday morning and then we came back from it. We ran, but Oracle was a really big deal yesterday. So when you're looking at the headlines, try not to fixate at this point on one name because we're just trying to find where should I be looking for movers today, right? And movers in what direction? Do I want to look up? Do I want to look down? And how long is it going to last? If we've been going to the upside and we get a 1-day pullback, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should be hunting for shorts as a swing because we don't have any indications that we're going to get a swing short. We're just getting a stop of the run that we've been having. So momentum, yeah, and if you go into these, they have usually like graphs or charts that are just like really easy to read at a glance. Good information. Just I post it in the chat from time to time because they have just such good, clean graphs and charts. I'm not finding any, of course, because I'm looking for one. You know what? I made an account. I made an account here, but it's not funded because they denied me. They said, well, the account's in my name, but my bank account is in my wife's and my name, and they denied me. And I said, okay, well, I guess I don't need to trade with you guys. So I have an account, but it's not funded. So I start here, um, get an idea of what's moving, and if there's a group that I like EVs or chips or something like that, then I try to hone in deeper on them. And then, of course, if it's anything Mag 7, there's usually a headline on just those. But if not, try to spot any that are standing out. There's the pot stock talk from today. There's the Broadcom and Roku was up here. The SMRs today were moving around. So OKLO and those guys, there was a headline on that. This is a really good place to go. Now, you don't have to have this, but you want something like this, right? Thinkorswim, believe it or not, has something like that. So turn on Thinkorswim's news, start the sidebar, put news on down at the bottom. You can go to a particular stock that you're interested in. Like if you want the Mag 7, just pick one, go to Apple. And if you scroll down to what we had in the pre-market, you'll see that they're talking about more than just Apple. They'll cover other names like the Mag 7 stocks right there. So you can get headlines, you can get video, all kinds of things from Thinkorswim's news. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can go to SPY and the ES, and it'll have stock news and a morning briefing. There's one that is published every day around 5 a.m. It's two pages, two posts. I'm not seeing it on SPY. We'll have to get it from the ES, which is usually where I get it. North American Morning Briefing, right there. Those two, you can see it has a two next to it. These two are a post that very much is like what we were just looking at, but it's not pretty like what we were just looking at, right? The Momo news, they have graphs and they make it all nice and pretty. These are just like really raw data points. So it's a bit more to chew on, but it'll get you pointed in the right direction if you don't have Momo. The idea is to get pointed in the right direction. Swing trades are not as easy as just, well, I want to find stocks that are going up, because that is that would be awesome if we could do that, but it's just not the way it works. So we have to hone in on something more specific to a particular sector, industry. These guys, MT, this has been a good one. There's been medical stocks that have been doing really good. And now we're getting a cycle, a bit of a rotation. Penny stocks that were gold was doing good, they're rotating. Now we're getting names like Rocket Mortgage and those guys that are rotating. Um, Costco, BJ's, we're seeing changes in their stock. You can play bottom fishing plays, like Fallen Angels. You can run stocks into new highs. When you came in, we were looking for a way to identify volatility on TradingView. And so we were looking at Bollinger Bands because they are a representation of volatility, but that's as far as we had gotten. There's It's worth mentioning, we're going to go over to the Bullish Bears website, that we've got material on swing trading that specifically covers swing trade strategies. Let me get logged in here. So education, next level library, swing trade scanners. These are the swing trade scanners that are on our website. 920 cross, 920 bear cross, high of day, 1330 bearish and bullish, and UOA. Those are pretty popular, and I believe these scans are for Thinkorswim. They are old, but they would still work. They are old, but they would still work, right? The moving average crossover isn't going to go away no matter how old it is. Unusual options activity is still unusual options activity. Like, you're 100% right. I did say they're old, but that doesn't mean that they're no good. You have to. Always appreciate you hopping in. What's up? We were just wrapping up a swing trade chat. Yeah, we were working on scanners. What have you been up to? Right on. All right, so the book is in the channel. The strategies that I use are in the channel. They've been posted. With Without a strategy, you can't set up a scanner because otherwise, what is the scanner supposed to look for? Now I've finished that. I can hit stop on the